Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premananda Haribo. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 6, Text 39, Purusha Shukta confirmed. Sa esha adya Purusha kalpe kalpe srijati aja atmatmani atmanatmanam na samyachati pati cha sa esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha sa esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha sa esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha sa esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa adya purusha kalpe kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha purusha kalpe srijatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam samyachati paticha. Mataji's sa he esha the very adya the original personality of Godhead Purusha the Mahavishnu incarnation a plenary portion of Govinda, Lord Krishna. Kalpe kalpe, in each and every millennium. Sujati, creates. Aja, the unborn. Atma, self. Atmani, upon the self. Atmana, his own self. By his own self. Atmanam, own self. Saha, he. Samyachati, absorbs. Pati, maintains. Cha, also. Translation. That Supreme Original Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates the manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The creation is none different from the Lord, and still he is not in the creation. This is explained in Bhagavad Gita 9.4 as follows. Maya tatam idam sarvam jagat avyakta murtina matstani sarvabhutani nachaham te svavastita. The impersonal conception of the Absolute Truth is also a form of the Lord called Avyakta Murti. Murti means form, but because his impersonal feature is inexplicable to our limited senses, he is the Avyakta Murti, and in that inexplicable form of the Lord, the whole creation is resting. Or in other words, the whole creation is the Lord himself, and the creation is also non-different from him. But simultaneously, he, as the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, is aloof from the created manifestation. The impersonalist gives stress to the impersonal form or feature of the Lord and does not believe in the original personality of the Lord. But the Vaishnavas accept the original form of the Lord, of whom the impersonal form is merely one of the features. The impersonal and personal conceptions of the Lord are existing simultaneously, and this fact is clearly described both in Bhagavad Gita and in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and also in other Vedic scriptures. Inconceivable to human intelligence, the idea must simply be accepted on the authority of the scriptures, and it can only be practically realized by the progress of devotional service unto the Lord, and never by mental speculation or inductive logic. The impersonalists depend more or less on inductive logic, and therefore they always remain in darkness about the original personality of Godhead Sri Krishna. Their conception of Krishna is not clear, although everything is clearly mentioned in all the Vedic scriptures. A poor fund of knowledge cannot comprehend the existence of an original personal form of the Lord when he is expanding in everything. This imperfectness is due more or less to the material conception that a substance distributed widely in parts can no longer exist in the original form. The original personality of Godhead, Adya Govinda, expands himself as the Mahavishnu incarnation and rests in the causal ocean, which he himself creates. The Brahma Samhita 547 confirms this as follows. Yakaranarna vajale bhajatisma yoga nidramananda jagaranda saroma kupa adhara shaktim avalambya param swamurtim govindam aripurusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Brahmaji says in Brahma Samhita, I worship the primeval Lord Govinda, who lies down in the causal ocean in his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, with all the universes generating from the pores of hair on his transcendental body, and who accepts the mystic slumber of eternity. So this Mahavishnu is the first incarnation in the creation, and from him all the universes are generated, and all material manifestations are produced one after another. The causal ocean is created by the Lord, as the Mahatattva is a cloud in the spiritual sky, and is only a part of his different manifestations. The spiritual sky is an expansion of his personal rays, and he is the Mahatattva cloud also. He lies down and generates the universes by his breathing, and again by entering into each universe as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. He creates Brahma, Shiva, and many other demigods for maintenance of the universe, and again absorbs the whole thing into his person, as confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.7. Sarva Bhutani Konteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakchaye Punastani Kalpadovra Sijamyaham. O son of Kunti, when the kalpa, or the duration of life of Brahma, is ended, then all the created manifestations enter into my prakriti, or energy, and again when I desire, the same creation takes place by my personal energy. The conclusion is that these are all but displays of the Lord's inconceivable personal energies, of which no one can have any full information. This point we have already discussed. Sa esha adya purusha kalpe kalpe srjatyaja atmatmani atmanatmanam sa samyachati paticha. That Supreme Original Personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, expanding his plenary portion as Mahavishnu, the first incarnation, creates this manifested cosmos, but he is unborn. The creation, however, takes place in him, and the material substance and manifestations are all himself. He maintains them for some time and absorbs them into himself again. Om Ajnanat Mirandasya Jananjana Shilakaya Chaksur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. So this is the process of creation. The materialistic persons have their own idea about creation. They say, one group of materialists, that there was a big bang and all of a sudden everything appeared. Big explosion. I don't think we've ever seen a big explosion where everything appears in wonderful order. Quite the opposite. A big explosion destroys things. So they have this Big Bang theory in the Christian world. They believe in the Genesis, a different understanding. But the Vedic understanding of creation is given here. This is real understanding. Mahavishnu is lying on the causal ocean. From his pores, millions of universes are emanating. From his out-breath, they manifest, and when he breathes in, they come back into his body. He enters each universe as Garbhodakshayi Vishnu. And as that Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, he lies on the Garbhodak ocean. From his navel, a lotus flower sprouts. And atop the lotus flower, Brahma is born from the lotus flower. Amazing concept. No one understands creation like the Vaishnava. The impersonalist doesn't understand this. Brahma hears two syllables, tapa, which means austerity and penance. That this life is meant for austerity and penance. Not that this life, people try to figure out, why am I here? Why was I put on this planet? And most people conclude to enjoy. We are pleasure seekers. Anando Maya Vyasat. Everyone is seeking pleasure. But we're seeking pleasure in the material sense, in the temporary, in the combination of the senses with their objects, which Bhagavad Gita tells us, and we learn, has a beginning and an end. If we don't learn it when we're young, from Bhagavad Gita, as we grow old, we learn it has a beginning and it has an end. We always used to hear and we'd recite, birth, death, disease, and old age. And we'd think about it. Now, most of the older devotees, at least, those of us who are old enough to get the COVID shot months ago, what do they say? Over 65. When we hear birth, death, disease, and old age, it rings true. Srila Prabhupada said, when he was passing from this world in Vrindavan in November of 1977, don't think this won't happen to you. Everyone's thinking, I'm going to enjoy to the last minute. But Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadi Dukkha Doshanu Darshanam. Bhagavad Gita tells us, and we experience birth, death, disease, and old age. Now everyone's experiencing somehow or other this COVID-19 disease. My daughter was tested. She's a child psychologist in the school system in Long Beach. And her test was inconclusive, so they banned her from school for 15 days. You have to stay at home, and your kids have to stay at home. The whole family has to be, quarantine. She had no symptoms. She had no disease. Inconclusive. What does that even mean? But this disease is so frightening to the materialistic persons that they're quarantining, shutting down, don't go here, don't go there, stay 6 feet apart, wear a mask constantly, try not to breathe too much. Birth, death, disease, and old age. Even I was at a clinic and I dropped my mask. This was last year. I bent over to pick it up, and somehow, because one foot is small and one is big, I tipped over. I was only 6 inches from the ground. And when I felt, don't even ask, there was a crack. And what they call femur was broken, the bone in the upper thigh. Actually, I was thinking, and it's true, when Bhima was fighting with Duryodhana, Krishna pointed to the femur. Go below the belt. Hit his femur. He'll be finished. He broke his femur and he died there on the battlefield some days later. Couldn't move. It's extremely painful. That's a big bone. When the 911 came, they said this is COVID related. I think they get some money or something. I said, how is it COVID related? I'm in some kind of chair. They said, because you were trying to get your mask. It's related to the COVID. I was like, it put me down for COVID. Because you were trying to pick up your mask. So they reported it as COVID-related accident. This material world is dukkhailam ashashvatam, temporary and miserable. But everyone's thinking, I was put here to enjoy. Meanwhile, the enjoyment goes down and the suffering goes up. Sukhaya dukkha mokshaya, kurvati dampati kriya, tato nivritir apraptir, dukkasya cha, sukhasya cha. A man, a woman, they try to be very happy in this material world by increasing the happiness, material, and decreasing the suffering. But because their desires are material, on the contrary, Srimad Bhagavatam tells us, the unhappiness increases and the happiness decreases. Because real happiness is the happiness of the soul. What is that? Atma suprasidati? Atmanam suprasidati? Yayatma suprasidati. Thank you. The happiness of the soul is real happiness. But we're thinking happiness means mundane happiness. And as time goes on within this material world, that happiness decreases more and more. People are upset. We can't sit down in a restaurant. We can't go around without masks. We can't congregate 15,000 people at a concert anymore, or even 60 at a yoga studio. Happiness in this material world is decreasing, and unhappiness is increasing. Dukkhayalam ashashvatam. Bhagavad Gita tells us. So, this amazing understanding of creation, Garbhodakshai Vishnu enters into every universe. From his navel comes a lotus flower, atop the lotus flower. Brahma is born, and Brahma hears the syllables tapa, austerity and penance. This is why you're here. We were put here in this world for austerity and penance. Don't think we have any other reason for being here. And what is that austerity and penance? The Sankirtan Yajna. For pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead and our spiritual master by taking up the mission of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That is the austerity for this age. Kalerdo seni de rajanasti eko madguna. Kirtanad eva krishnasya mukta sangha param bhajet. Srimad Bhagavatam tells us, Kirtanad eva krishnasya. Chanting Hare Krishna, spreading the Krishna movement. This is the austerity for this age. Kalerdosa nide. Kali Yuga is an ocean of faults. You can sit and criticize all day and all night, and the next day and the next night ad infinitum. Kalerdosa nide is an ocean of faults. Asti hi eko mahadgunad. But there's eka, one, mahadguna, great quality of this age. Kirtanad eva krishnasya. That just by chanting Hare Krishna, mukta sangha param brajat, one can reach the ultimate goal of life. So Garbhodakshai Vishnu, lying in each universe on that Garbhodak ocean, Brahma is hearing the syllables tapa from the lotus flower, and Mahavishnu enters one more time as Kshirodakshai Vishnu. I think is also called Karanadakshai Vishnu, isn't it? Yeah. Karanadakshai, Kshirodakshai Vishnu. One of those. Vishnu appears as the in everyone's heart as the supersoul. Andantarasta paramanu chayantarastam. Bigger than the biggest is Krishna, smaller than the smallest. He enters into the heart of every living entity. I think Srila Prabhupada said, I was told, like the size of a thumb. Krishna is there in everyone's heart. So, this is the creation according to Vaishnavism. It's not some big bang. It's very ordered. It's not Adam and Eve. I'm not even sure what the Christian conception is. But it's not that conception. Is Mahavishnu lying on the causal ocean? This is creation. This is the science of life, the science of creation, the science of devotion. When I was a young man and met devotees, I was hearing in one book about the science of devotional service. So I asked the devotees, Bhutatma, how can I learn more about the science of devotional service? And he said, here, Nectar of Devotion. This explains the science of Krishna consciousness. So we shouldn't think that this is some, I know if you look up on the internet, they go the fairy tale or the fable or the myth. This is science. These stories are scientific and actually took place. Everything we read in Krishna book is factual. It's not some mythology. The Battle of Kurukshetra took place. There's a place called Kurukshetra. There was a battle. It's not a myth. The people aren't just characters that were made up. They're persons that existed in history. And we should be very happy and content that somehow or other, by Krishna's mercy, Srila Prabhupada found us. He sent people to find us, to teach us this science, this ancient science. Otherwise, it makes no sense. So much suffering in this material world. Unbelievable suffering. This time I went recently to the hospital to get a routine procedure to take fluid out of my lung area. But when they went in, there were complications. So they called my children and said, we have to open up a little bit, make an incision, take a look at the stomach. They opened and they decided, well, Let's open from here to here. And while we're there, let's intubate this son of a biscuit. Put tubes. And they found some perforation, dead tissue. I don't know if they took out tissues, whatever. And it's because there were complications in the procedure. Every time someone goes to the hospital, you hear about complications. The complications could end up being, well, we had to remove a couple organs or dead tissues, whatever. Actually, I woke up and I was in the operating room, intubated, and my stomach completely open. And I was praying to Krishna to just take me. Just get me out of here. Kill me. I'll go to hell. I'll go anywhere. Narayana Para. But because I was insincere, Krishna was like, no. You haven't suffered enough. There's a lot more. Dukhayalam ashashvatam. This material world is not a nice place. And everyone can experience that sooner or later. You may be thinking, well, I've been pretty lucky, things aren't happening to me. Prabhupada said, don't think this won't happen. Srila Prabhupada hadn't eaten for months. The doctors were amazed because his nerves were exposed. Can you imagine? And they weren't giving him nerve deadeners. Most people, they give dilaudid morphine, whatever. You push a button and you get these things. Still, you're suffering. They only let you push the button every 10 minutes. And after about 5 minutes, you're in complete misery. But you can't push the button. So, we are so fortunate that we have this science. We're not here for mundane reasons. We're not here to enjoy this body. We're here for tapasya. Tapasa brahmacharjena samena cha damena cha tyagena satya sauchabhyam yamena niyamena va. We're here, Bhagavad Gita tells us, for tapasa brahmacharjena samena cha damena cha. Controlling the mind, controlling the senses, and being happy in spiritual life and giving. This science, deep science, amazing science of Krishna consciousness to anyone and everyone. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Thank you very much.